Euro 2024 is right around the corner, so it's only right that I make my predictions on the entire tournament. And trust me, you're gonna want to stay until the end, because there's gonna be a lot of upsets in my predictions. Why? Because I love being bold. So let's get straight into it. Starting off with Group A, we got the host Germany, then Scotland, Hungary, and Switzerland in this one. This group is gonna be difficult to predict, not gonna lie. Now talking about Germany, for the most part after the 2022 World Cup, they've been absolutely dreadful. Some of their results in the past year include a 3-3 draw with Ukraine, a 1-0 loss to Poland, a 2-0 loss to Colombia at home, and a 4-1 loss to Japan at home. These terrible strings of results even cost Hansi Flick, a very successful manager at Bayern Munich once upon a time, his job with Germany, and got sacked. But now with Nagelsmann at the helm, even though his start with Germany was a bit shaky, with the Germans losing to the Turkish 3-2 at home, and then lost 2-0 to Austria, the most previous international window was actually a huge success, with them defeating two other European giants, France 2-0, and then the Netherlands 2-1. Not only that, Germany have some serious star power right now, with some of their best players being in the forms of their lives. For example, Kai Havertz has been a success with Arsenal, especially in the second half of the season. Jamal Musiala is arguably one of the best midfielders in the world already at just 21 years old. Florian Wirtz is a diamond piece for this unbeaten Bayer Leverkusen side this season, along with Jonathan Tah. Niklas Füllkrug is on a tear this season as well. Plus, with Toni Kroos now back in the picture for Germany and is set to start at the Euros, in which Germany are hosting, things are looking really bright for the German national team this summer. And honestly, German football overall, with Borussia Dortmund making the Champions League final and Bayer Leverkusen going for the treble as well. So like I said, German football is on a rise as a whole. Back to what I was saying though, with Germany being the host and host nations having the tendency to overperform at tournaments, especially in the Euros, because in every Euros tournament besides in 2008 and 2012 where the host got grouped, the host nation has made it to the semi-final or further, and I don't think Germany is going to get grouped. Now with Germany picking up form as of late, there's a country in this group that's doing the exact opposite, and it's Scotland. They were on a roll during Euro qualifiers, winning the first 5 games that they had in front of them, including defeating the likes of Spain at home 2-0, Norway away from home 2-1, and Georgia at home 2-0. But after that, the Scottish started to fall off slightly. They lost to Spain 2-0, drew with Georgia 2-2, and drew with Norway 3-3 in the Euro qualifiers, and this had them finishing second in their group, which is still pretty good, but this does mean that they had a fall off. That's not it though, because they then also lost to the rivals England 3-1, got spanked by France 4-1, got destroyed by the Dutch 4-0, and then most recently lost to Northern Ireland at home 1-0. So right now, Scotland's form is not looking too good. And with them not producing much offensively, I'm not sure how they'll be able to break down some really good defensive units in this group. Scotland do have some really good players though, like Scott McTominay, who's one of the only players that has been good for United this season, Billy Gilmore, John McGinn, one of the most underrated midfielders in the world in my opinion, and of course their captain, Andy Robertson. So, can Scotland pull something special off here? Let's see, but first, let's preview the other teams in this group, and let's move on to Hungary. Hungary for me is a national team that I'm really excited about heading into the 2024 Euros. Not only because of their captain and star player, Dominik Szoboszlai, who also happens to be a player at my favorite club Liverpool, but overall, I think this team could be a dark horse at the tournament. Here's why. Although the Euro qualifying group wasn't difficult whatsoever, with Serbia being their biggest threat, they still managed to top the group undefeated, getting 5 wins and only drawing 3 times. Not only that, if we take a look at the most recent Nations League campaign, Hungary was in a group with Italy, Germany, and England, and they somehow managed to finish second despite not having many notable names in Europe apart from a few. In the Nations League too, they managed to beat Germany away from home 1-0 and also did the double over England, one of the biggest Euro favorites this year, with the Hungarians beating England at home 1-0 and then absolutely destroying England at Wembley 4-0. And in the last 5 years, only 4 teams have gone to Wembley and beaten England, and Hungary is one of them, with them also having the most convincing scoreline in this statistic. Plus, heading into the Euros, Hungary are looking to be in some great form, with them defeating Turkey 1-0 and Kosovo 2-0 in the most recent international window. And their last loss to any national team was all the way back in September 2022 when they lost to the previous Euro champions Italy 2-0. So what I'm trying to say is, Hungary got that dog in them, and they definitely possess that dark horse energy. Plus, if we take a look back to Euro 2020, Hungary were put in the group of death with Portugal, Germany, and France. And although they finished last in the group, they showed that they weren't a team that was going to be easy to beat, only losing to Portugal at the tournament while drawing to the World Cup champions at the time, France 1-1, and then drawing to Germany 2-2. And they did that without their best player and captain, Dominik Szoboszlai, because he had to miss the tournament due to injury. And now with them back, who knows what Hungary can accomplish at the 2024 Euros. And yes, I know, they might not have that much star power in terms of player names, but Hungary plays like a unit, like a complete team, and they operate together perfectly. And a well-functioned team usually will always overpower a team that relies relies on star power. So that's important to keep in mind. Now I've talked about Hungary enough. So now let's go over to Switzerland before I give my Group A predictions. Now the Swiss national team is definitely a tricky one to talk about, because no matter how bad or good their form is, they somehow always get out at group stages at tournaments, and then they usually lose in like the round of 16 or something. It literally happens so often. However, the 2020 Euros isn't included in this, because that's when Switzerland made the quarterfinals after pulling off the ultimate upset against France, knocking them out on pens. Anyways though, the last time Switzerland failed to progress in the group stages was at the 2010 World Cup, which was around 14 years ago. So even though Switzerland might not be that good right now, with some of their top players aging, like Sheridan Shaqiri, who has been their main star for years, but now with him underperforming with the Chicago Fire, who knows how he'll actually perform with his country at the tournament now. They do have Granit Xhaka though, who is performing out of his mind for Leverkusen right now, and arguably he might be in the best form of his life too. Plus, with the Kanji and Schär in the back and Sommer in net, Switzerland has a sturdy back line that's going to be tough to score against. So even though Switzerland might be booty cheeks on the pitch right now, literally almost failing to clinch a spot at the Euros, finishing only 2 points ahead of third place Israel in their group, and in their last 6 games overall, they've won none of them, losing to Romania 1-0 in a couple of those games, there's probably still a chance that Switzerland can make it out of the group. So after my in-depth review of the national teams in Group A, who do I got finishing bottom? Well, I actually got Scotland finishing last. A lot of football fans actually have Scotland going through, but I don't think so. For me, I think right now Scotland do well at home, but away from that, and just lately overall, they've been pretty bad. And also lately, there's been no history from Scotland of making it through from the group stages and making it to the round of 16, unlike Switzerland for example, and that's why I have Scotland in last place. Then in third, I actually got Switzerland, and the reason why I don't have them second is because of their form. With their form being as poor as it is, I just can't see them finishing higher than that. But I can't put them bottom, because well, it's Switzerland. They always find a way. Now in second place, I actually got Hungary. I've already gassed them up a lot calling them dark horses, and I think they're gonna do well at this tournament. And them finishing second in this group is doing well in my eyes. Plus, Soboslai is gonna perform out of his mind at this tournament. I just feel it. And then in first place, I obviously got Germany. They're the host nation of course, and with them having their best players being in form right now, it's hard for me to say that they'll finish anywhere but first. Germany could do a madness at this tournament overall too, not gonna lie. Moving on to Group B, we got the likes of Spain, Croatia, Italy, and Albania. This might actually be the group of death of the entire Euros too. Starting off with Spain though, they're probably one of the top 5 or top 6 favorites to win the entire tournament. In the Euro qualifiers in fact, Spain almost had a flawless record, getting 7 wins out of the 8 games they played, which included a 3-0 win over Norway, a 7-1 win over Georgia, a 6-0 win over Cyprus, a 2-0 win over Scotland, etc. Their only loss in the qualifiers was actually to Scotland early on, as I mentioned earlier. Then in the Nations League, they finished on top of their group, which helped them make the Nations League semifinals, where they would then beat Euro champions Italy 2-1 in the semis, the same country that actually defeated them at the 2020 Euro semifinals on penalties, and then defeated Croatia in the final of the Nations League to win their first international trophy since the 2012 Euros. Now Spain might not be in the hottest form because of the last international window, where they had an absolutely entertaining 3-3 draw against Brazil at the Bernabeu, and then a 1-0 loss to Colombia. But Colombia are on some serious hot form right now, so maybe we shouldn't take this loss in them too seriously. Plus, Spain has some absolute top players on their side. They've got Rodri, who has been a crucial part to Manchester City this season, with them actually being undefeated when Rodri has started for them. And then they also have the likes of Nico Williams, who has balled out for Bilbao this year, and of course Lamine Yamal, the 16-year-old wonder kid who has enjoyed an excellent season for Barcelona. He genuinely might be the heir to the throne from Messi at Barca. But that's a different topic for a different day. Overall, with Spain having some young and exciting players, and an offense that seems somewhat fluid, Spain could be one of the most exciting teams to watch at these Euros. But before I get a little too ahead of myself, let's talk about Croatia. In the past decade, Croatia have built quite a reputation for themselves, continuously proving the doubters wrong and going far in tournaments when nobody expects them to. At the 2018 World Cup, Croatia went all the way to the final for the first time in their history, and then at the next World Cup in 2022, they got third place after going far when nobody expected them to once again. The thing about Croatia for me though, is that you can clearly see that they're declining. Despite Luka Modric being a Ballon d'Or winner and still playing for Real Madrid, he's now 38 years old, and it finally seems like age is catching up to him. In fact, he's had the lowest amount of minutes for Real Madrid this season than ever before since he became a starter for the club. Then, other key players like Ivan Rakitic and Mandzukic have already retired from the national team. And although Croatia do have some young players coming through, it's not as prevalent as they were before. And we can actually see this decline taking place right now. In the 2024 Euro qualifiers, they had a group that they should have been topping, but instead they fell short to Turkey and finished second place, losing to the likes of Turkey 1-0 and Wales, a team that didn't even qualify for the Euros, 2-1 on the way as well. Plus, in the most recent international window, Croatia played in some friendly international tournament, and although they beat an Egypt team without Mohamed Salah in the semis, they had to go all the way to penalties in the final to beat Tunisia, a team Croatia should easily beat on paper. You never know with Croatia though. Everybody doubts them at the start, but they always somehow prove everybody wrong. But this time, they might not be able to do it. All good things things come to an end. Remember, Germany were on top of the world after winning the 2014 World Cup, but they came crashing down unexpectedly in the 2018 edition. That's all I'm saying for now. Let's now move on to Italy, who are the recent 2020 Euro champions like I mentioned before, where they ended up beating England in London to win it all. But in 2024, this Italian team is completely different to the one that won the Euros, and they've gone through a lot of changes. For starters, the manager that helped Italy go undefeated for so long and win the Euros, Roberto Mancini, isn't even there anymore. Why? Well, he was in charge of Italy's World Cup qualifying campaign, and that means he was in charge when they got beat by North Macedonia in the last second to fail to qualify for their second World Cup in a row. Not only that, two of Italy's key pieces in the back, Chiellini and Bonucci, aren't in the picture anymore, with Chiellini now being retired from football and Bonucci not being in the picture for Italy anymore, with him playing over in Turkey for Fenerbahce. These are just few out of the many changes. And in fact, if we take a look at the last international window, most of the Italian team looks completely different to the one that won the Euros, like I said. But that doesn't mean that this Italian side is bad, because in fact, it's quite the opposite. During the Euro qualifiers, Italy finished second in the group, but their only two losses were to England, one of the biggest favorites to win the Euros this year. They beat every other team in the group besides that. Then in the recent Nations League, they topped a difficult group consisting of Hungary, Germany, and England, and then proceeded to secure third place overall, beating Netherlands 3-2 in the third place game to get that. Plus, the new Italian manager, Spalletti, is damn good at his job. And in their most recent games, they beat a good Venezuelan side 2-1 and a strong Ecuador side 2-0 away from home. Their squad still has plenty of talent too, with them having the likes of Donnarumma, Vicario, Bastoni, Di Lorenzo, Locatelli, Chiesa, Di Marco, Jorginho, Barella, etc. Plus, Italian football has been a decent success this year too, with Inter Milan looking stronger than ever, Roma almost making a Europa League final, and Atalanta doing so, defeating Liverpool and Marseille on the way. Back to the national team specifically though, although this Italian side is different to what we're used to, they're still pretty good. Don't let that 2022 World Cup qualifying failure fool you still. And now, last but not least, let's talk about the massive underdogs, Albania. A lot of people are sleeping on them, but I'm not. In the Euro 2024 qualifiers, Albania managed to top their somewhat even group, finishing above the likes of Czech Republic and Poland, two sides who are also in the Euros this year. And they also smacked them 3-0 and 2-0 respectively. Plus, their goals in the past year have been some absolute worldies, man. I'm trying to see some of that in the Euros, and I think we will. But not only did they top their group though, but in their last 10 games before this most recent international window, where Albania did end up losing to Chile 3-0 and Sweden 1-0, Albania only managed to concede 4 goals out of their last 10 games. And most of those were competitive fixtures too. So not only do they score worldies, but they're also pretty good at being defensive and keeping clean sheets. My only issue with Albania though is that last international window. It wasn't looking good for them at all, with them losing to a Chile side, who by the way are doing much better now under Ricardo Gareca, a top manager of South American football, and then also losing to a Sweden side that failed to qualify for the Euros. But these are friendlies, and Albania were kinda experimenting with their lineup. In fact, for most of the Euro qualifiers, they didn't play one of their most key notable players, Armando Broja, due to injury. But when they did play him recently, Albania lost. So maybe that's something to keep in mind for the Euros as well. Like maybe Albania should bench him, or maybe find a way to use him differently tactically. But overall for Albania, man, they're so hot and cold. They can beat you on their day with ease, and sometimes they just fumble the bag and lose or draw terribly. Like drawing to the Faroe Islands 0-0 is inexcusable, respectfully. So for me, Albania is definitely somewhat of a wild card this tournament, and it's up to you whether you want to take the gamble on them or not. Anyways, let's now get to my Group B predictions, where I'm gonna start off with a major upset. I'm putting Croatia in dead last. I know, y'all weren't expecting this, but these are my predictions and this is how I roll. I did say I was gonna be bold. Listen, Croatia have been fantastic throughout these past few years, but as I said already, all good things come to an end. And I think this Euros is when Croatia are gonna realize that they need a massive rebuild and need to start taking some chances with their young players in the next few years. Modric isn't the same as he once was, and so are most of the older Croatian players. Look what happened in Germany and how they fell apart by relying on older players too much. The same could happen in Croatia, that's all I'm saying. Plus, the point of making these prediction videos for me is not to choose the favorites to go through every single time, because that never happens in tournaments. There's always an upset here or there. If you want to watch someone pick the favorites to go through each time, you gotta go watch another prediction video, because on the Naruto channel, we like bold upsets. Anyways, moving on to third, I got Albania. I think they're gonna come through and beat Croatia unexpectedly to get third place. They're a wild card, and I'm gonna take a gamble on them. Then in second, I'm going for Italy. They're a good, solid team like I said before, but I think Spain has too much firepower on paper to get anything except first place in this group, which is where I put them. I can already imagine the comments about my Croatia prediction, but hey, I said what I said. Let's finally move on to Group C, where we got England, Slovenia, Serbia, and Denmark. But before we go on with my predictions, please remember to subscribe to the channel. I'd really appreciate it and it means a lot, so thank you. And also, if you guys can, follow my Twitter and my Instagram, both at Nabuto, if you just want to hear my thoughts on football games, transfers, and overall, just to get to know me more. So if you want to, feel free to hit me up with that follow. Thank you. Back to topic, let's start by talking about England first. I feel like recently, whenever a tournament rolls around, England's squad just continues to get better. The squad in 2018 for the World Cup was so much different than what it is now, and they went to the semifinals. Then at the 2020 Euros, England made the final with an even better squad on paper, but were only a penalty shootout away from winning their second international trophy. Even at the 2022 World Cup, despite the English going out in the quarterfinals to France, they still had an improved squad on paper. And now for the 2024 Euros, their squad is better than it ever has been before. In fact, the best player in Spain is Jude Bellingham, the Englishman midfielder who is in contention to win the Ballon d'Or. Then, the best player in Germany this season might be Harry Kane, who has scored a ridiculous amount of goals for Bayern Munich despite them not winning a single trophy. The Harry Kane trophy curse is a discussion for another day though. Then in England, the best player this season might actually be Phil Foden, and the second best player of the season might be Cole Palmer or even Bukayo Saka. And all of these three players are English and will be at the Euros. So as you can see, the England squad is looking pretty nice. They might get bossed and dominated tactically by other bigger European nations later on in the tournament, because Gareth Southgate isn't the best manager, let's be honest, but in their group, there isn't really another top European nation. So I think England should be just fine for now. And yes, I know, England didn't secure a win in the last international window, with them losing to Brazil at home 1-0 due to the Brazilian wonder kid, Endrick's goal, and then drew to Belgium 2-2 at home as well. But I think they'll be fine for the Euros, trust me. Next though, let's talk about Slovenia. They actually surprised a lot of people by qualifying for the Euros for only the second time in their history. In fact, their group was actually pretty difficult, with most of the teams being pretty even. But Slovenia managed to defy the odds and finish second place, only losing out on top spot due to them losing to Denmark at the second to last match day 2-1. Regardless, Slovenia is a team that has a lot of potential to surprise everybody at this tournament. But a lot of things would have to go their way. For starters, Jan Oblak is going to have to protect his net a ton, and he better be dropping some MVP performances in every single group stage game, because if not, I don't think that defense can handle some of the attacking threat in this group, and this would mean that Slovenia would stink up at the tournament. Also, Benjamin Šeško is going to have to replicate some of his RB Leipzig form lately for his national team. He scored 17 goals across all competitions for Leipzig, which is really good for someone that's only 20 years old, and not only that, he scored 11 goals in 27 games for his country. That's almost a goal in every 2 games. So Šeško has to repeat this good form for his country if Slovenia want to pull off any upsets here, but it might be a little too unlikely, especially because in the last international window, they drew to Malta 2-2, a side that they should be beating. But they did manage to beat one of the Euro favorites this year, Portugal, 2-0 in that window, and that was actually the first match that the Portugal manager, Roberto Martinez, has lost. So honestly, with Slovenia, who knows what's gonna go on, bruh. Let's now move on and talk about Serbia, who have actually qualified to the Euros for the first time in their history as an independent nation, because before, they only qualified as Yugoslavia or Serbia and Montenegro. Now, Serbia is definitely an interesting national team to talk about, because offensively, yes, they're amazing on paper, with them having players such as Dusan Vlahovic, Aleksandar Mitrovic, Dusan Tadic, Milinkovic Savic, Kostic, Luka Jovic, etc. But defensively is where Serbia really lacks, and we can see that in some of their games in the past couple of years, specifically at the World Cup, because they were one of the favorites to make it out of their group, and instead, they only secured 1 point, and that 1 point should have been 3 if Serbia held on to the 3-1 lead, instead of fumbling the bag defensively and drawing 3-3 at the end. And I know what y'all might be thinking, Nabuto, you're looking too far back, you're not looking recent enough. Well, actually, in their second most recent game, they got spanked by Russia, a team that's been banned from competing at tournaments by UEFA 4-0. Yeah, it's not looking too good for Serbia, bruh. But now, let's talk about Denmark, a side that was officially labeled by everybody as a dark horse of the 2020 Euros, with them making the semifinals. And if it wasn't for a suspicious penalty decision that went England's way, and green lasers pointing at Schmeichel's eyes, Denmark might have made the Euro finals instead of the English. This great performance had a lot of football fans, including myself, think that Denmark could also be dark horses at the World Cup as well. But instead, they completely shat the bed and finished bottom of their group. A group, by the way, that consisted of Tunisia and Australia. Yeah, Denmark let us down big time. But now, most recently, Denmark have actually been performing better, with them topping their qualifying group, like I said before, and them having a top striker that they didn't have before in Rasmus Højlund, one of the few bright spots for Manchester United this season. But I do have to say, Denmark is kind of confusing me right now, because although they've had some good results, they still somehow conceded to San Marino out of all teams in a competitive fixture, also ended up losing to Northern Ireland 2-0, and only beat the Faroe Islands by 2 goals. So who knows what could happen with the Danish, to be honest. However, talk about my overall Group C predictions, I got Serbia finishing in 4th. They always seem to go into tournaments with a ton of hype on them, and they always end up screwing it up, as we can see with the 2018 World Cup and the 2022 World Cup. The reason I don't have them 3rd though is because I got Slovenia getting a freak victory against them thanks to Benjamin Šeško, and with that, I'm going to put Slovenia in 3rd place. Following that, I'm putting Denmark in 2nd, and although they let everybody down at the World Cup, I think they're going to rectify things and do somewhat well in the group and get second place, while England will easily finish first place. I've got no doubts about that. If England don't finish first place in this Euro group, I'll literally give away a jersey or something. So make sure y'all comment down below. Although there's probably no point, because England is definitely finishing first. Moving on to Group D, you've got a great one, with this group consisting of France, Netherlands, Austria, and Poland. Yeah, I really like this group. Let's start off with the French though, who are probably the biggest favorites to go on and win the Euros this year. Why? Well, they won the World Cup in 2018 and defied the odds and broke the World Cup curse to make the final in 2022, only losing on penalties to Argentina. And then they won the Nations League a couple of years ago and arguably have the best player in the world right now, Kylian Mbappe. Not only that, France topped their Euro qualifying group and did that while remaining undefeated, even when the Netherlands were in their group, just like they are in the Euros. Additionally, France ended up defeating the Netherlands both times they faced each other in their group, and they also absolutely destroyed Gibraltar a few months ago, 14-0, which is just an extraordinary scoreline. However, their most recent international window was a little bit shaky, with them losing to Germany 2-0 and then beating Chile 3-2. And although they got the win, conceding 2 goals to a side that hasn't made the World Cup since 2014 is kind of worrying, despite Gareca being in charge. But at the end of the day, it's France, and they're definitely one of the top sides in this group. Moving on to the next team, let's talk about the Netherlands. They performed well at the recent World Cup, a tournament they failed to qualify for back in 2018. However, since Louis van Gaal left the Dutch job and Ronald Koeman took over again, the Netherlands have been looking a bit shaky when it comes to playing a top European nation. When they don't, Netherlands look great, but in their most recent games against top opposition, they lost to France 4-0, Croatia 4-2, Italy 3-2, France 2-1, and Germany 2-1. That means in their last 5 games against top European countries, they lost all 5, and that isn't a good look. But with the Netherlands having a pretty talented squad and Virgil van Dijk holding it down in the back, their luck could turn around at this tournament. So we'll see. Next, let's talk about Austria, a country that's heading into the Euros in hot form. Despite having their most notable player and captain, David Alaba, being out with an ACL injury, Austria still somehow managed to qualify for the Euros over Sweden in their group, and only missed topping it by a single point to Belgium. Not only that, in the recent international break, Austria were on smokes, with them defeating Slovakia away from home 2-0, and then absolutely destroying a pretty talented Turkey team 6-1. Genuinely, with the way that Austria are performing, I wouldn't be surprised if Austria pulls an upset here or there at this tournament. Am I foreshadowing something? Maybe. I guess you'll find out soon enough. In all seriousness though, this team is talented. From their midfielder Leimer, Sabitzer, Schlager, to their defensive Donzo and Walber, to their attack of Baumgartner and Gregoritsch. They might not have the super notable names, but this team is damn good. Don't be fooled. And the fact that Ralf Rangnick turned down the Bayern job at the last second to stay coaching this Austrian side just shows that he believes in their talent, and he thinks this is only the start of Austria's rise in the footballing world. It's going to be interesting watching Austria at this tournament, and I can't wait to see what happens. Now, let's finally talk about Poland, and I'm going to keep it short and simple. These guys are washed. I don't care that they have Lewandowski. They always manage to underperform at tournaments. Yes, they made it through to the round 16 at the World Cup, but that's because they have Saudi Arabia and the worst Mexico team in years in their group. Plus, they got spanked by France in the next round. Then at the last Euros, they had a way easier group than this one, and they still somehow managed to finish at the bottom, even with Lewandowski. So, to start off with my Group D predictions, y'all probably already assumed it. I got Poland finishing in last, bruh. Don't really see how this changes otherwise. Then in third, I got somewhat of an upset here. I'm putting the Netherlands. I think it's a toss-up between who finishes in second between Austria and Netherlands, but I think there's a chance that Austria could hold France to a draw or something, while the Dutch lose to them. And this would probably make the Netherlands finish lower on points if both teams draw each other. Then for second, as I alluded to, it's Austria. I can also see them being a dark horse at this tournament, considering their hot form heading into it. And then in first, I got France. I don't think there's a chance that they won't top this group. Moving on to Group B, we got the likes of Belgium, Slovakia, Romania, and Ukraine. Speaking about Belgium first, yes, their golden generation is getting older, and honestly it might be over by now, with Kevin De Bruyne and Lukaku only getting older, and Eden Hazard, their superstar and ex-captain, already retiring from the beautiful game. But if you've been keeping tabs on Belgium, you would know that although they might not be as strong as they once were, there's a ton of talent coming through for this country. For example, there's Jeremy Doku, Lois Openda, Johan Bakayoko, Amadou Onana, Leandro Trossard, etc. Plus, as I've already mentioned, they're still good enough to top their Euro qualifying group. And although they massively underperformed at the 2022 World Cup, they've made positive changes to their squad to prevent them from getting grouped at a tournament ever again. And in this group especially, I do find it highly unlikely that Belgium will find a way to get out. But their last international window consisted of 2 draws, and the one against Ireland was concerning. Like, how can you not score against the Irish with your attacking talent, bruh? Respectfully. But regardless, Belgium's got a good side, so I find it unlikely that their Euro journey will end in the group stages. Next up in this group, we got Slovakia, and I can't lie to y'all, ever since Hamsik retired, I haven't kept up with anything regarding the Slovakia national team. What I do know is they do have one other super notable player in Milan Skriniar, but he hasn't been performing that well for PSG this year, so that's not good to hear. But I guess you gotta give them credit for finishing second in their Euro qualifying group consisting of Iceland. But to be honest, Slovakia as a country should have expected to qualify for the Euros with a group like this. But the only side Slovakia did lose to was a talented Portugal side, so maybe Slovakia can hold their ground in this Euros group. But honestly, I'm not expecting too much out of them. Let's now move on to Ukraine, who in my opinion could be a sleeper team at the Euros. Not only do they have established players in Europe like Alexander Zinchenko, Yarmolenko, Mikolenko, Artem Dovbyk, Sulikov, Andrei Lunin, who played a lot for Real Madrid and has been rock solid for them, and Mikhailo Mudryk, who might be doo-doo booty cheeks for Chelsea most of the time, but with Ukraine, he's a beast. And with these guys, Ukraine actually did well in the Euro qualifiers. Yes, they finished third in their qualifying group, but you have to remember that they had mega favorites England in their group, and also the previous champions Italy as well. And Ukraine even finished level on points with them, but still finished third due to head-to-head or probably goal difference. With that, Ukraine were sent to the Euro playoffs, where they would beat Bosnia 2-1 in the semifinals, and then have a comeback victory in the final against Iceland, with Mudryk scoring an 84th minute winner to send his country to the Euros for the 4th time in a row. And also, with the sad war going on right now in Ukraine regarding Russia, I know the players will try to do everything in their power to make sure that they can make their people and their nation proud. So, with the power of friendship and actually just being a good national team, I think Ukraine could potentially do well in this group. And now, we finally got the last team in this group, Romania, who qualified for the Euros for the first time since 2016. Now, Romania is an interesting one to talk about, because sure, they might have like a couple notable names, like Ianis Hagi, who is currently out on loan with Alaves in Spain, and Dragusin, the center back at Tottenham. But besides those two, and maybe a couple more players, Romania doesn't really have a lot of footballers playing at the highest level in Europe. But together, as a unit, kind of like Hungary, they're incredibly solid. In fact, in their Euro qualifying group, Romania managed to finish on top of the group despite Switzerland being in it. Plus, they finished the group unbeaten, which is something to take note of. But in the most recent international window, they did fail to beat Northern Ireland out of all teams and drew 1-1, and then lost to Colombia 3-2. But like I said before, Colombia is a red hot team over in South America right now, and they're dark horses for the Copa America. So the fact that Romania even scored 2 against them despite not having a superstar is pretty impressive. Overall, for my Group E predictions though, I'm gonna have to go for Slovakia in last. Maybe it's out of ignorance since I don't really know too much about them, but considering the fact that I haven't heard too much about them, probably means something, so I gotta put them last. Then in third, I got Romania. Although they technically had a better record than Ukraine and even Belgium in their qualifying groups, I think Romania's group was probably the easiest of the three, and once they face competition that's equal to them or even better than them on paper, I think there's a chance that they could struggle for points. Then in second, I'm gonna put Ukraine. I rate this team highly, and I can't wait to see how far the power of friendship and motivation takes them, but I don't see them beating Belgium on points, which is why I got them finishing first in this group. Moving on to the final group, before we go on to the knockout stages, we got Group F, which consists of Portugal, Czech Republic, Turkey, and Georgia, who have made the Euros for the first time. Let's talk about Portugal first though, since they're the clear favorite to top this group, and rightfully so. However, we have seen Portugal being in a Euro group that they should have topped but didn't, and that was all the way back in 2016. But they did end up winning the tournament, so I guess that point is pretty irrelevant. Regardless, since then, Portugal have been improving on and off the pitch. They've been doing really well off the pitch in terms of developing new and established players in Europe, like Rafael Leao, Bruno Fernandes, Vitinha, Bernardo Silva, Ruben Dias, Diego Jota, etc, etc. But they're also doing well on the pitch, because for the Euro qualifiers, Portugal are the only team to secure 30 points by winning 10 out of their 10 games. In fact, the closest teams to Portugal in terms of points are France, Romania, Denmark, and Slovenia, who all finished with 22, meaning that Portugal were the best team overall throughout the qualifiers. And with Roberto Martinez in charge, they've been performing very well, apart from the 2-0 loss to Slovenia in a friendly, which came as a shock to everybody. But besides that, I think Martinez's Portugal side is looking pretty fire, and I think there's a chance that they could go far in this tournament, just like they did back in 2016. That might be foreshadowing. Keep what I said in mind. Moving on to the next team though, let's talk about Czech Republic. I'll be honest, this isn't a team I'm too high on heading into the Euros, and that's despite them making the quarterfinals in the previous edition, defeating the Netherlands on the way there, and also having good players performing as well, like Souček with West Ham and Patrick Schick with Bayer Leverkusen. The reason for that is because their performances on the pitch haven't been too crazy. Like yeah, they've been good, but they also lost to Albania 3-0, a side that they should probably be beating on paper. Plus, if we look at Czech Republic's Euro history, they flip-flop on how well they do at the tournament, and the fact that they made the quarterfinals last time might mean they get grouped this time. Just saying. Now let's talk about the Turkey national team. Who remembers when we all thought they were going to be major dark horses at the 2020 Euros? Just for them to finish bottom of their group and be one of the worst teams at that tournament. Good times. Anyways, now though, this Turkey team has gotten even better, believe it or not. They've got some super talents coming through, like Arda Güler from Real Madrid and Kenan Yildiz from Juventus. And overall, they have some pretty good players too, like Çalhanoğlu, who enjoyed an incredible season with Inter Milan, helping them win the league, and Özcan, who has been a stud for Borussia Dortmund this year. Plus, they managed to top their Euro qualifying group that consisted of third place 2022 World Cup participant Croatia, and then also Wales. The only issue I have with this Turkey team is their last international window, because my god were they bad. I mean, they lost to Hungary 1-0, but then got absolutely booty spanked by Austria 6-1. But with Turkey, they can either perform extraordinarily or just terrible. You're gonna have to gamble on them in terms of them performing at international tournaments. Streets will never forget that Euro 2020 let down from Turkey. And now we have Euro debutants Georgia. And no, I'm not talking about that damn US state. I'm talking about the European country who has been on the rise lately, with some of their players balling out in Europe. Like for example, their goalkeeper, Mamardashvili, who's with Valencia right now, is probably getting a big money move this summer. And of course, there's Kavica Kvaratskhelia, who was one of the best wingers in the 22-23 season. Yeah, he fell off a little bit this season, but so did all Napoli, so you can't really put the blame all on him. But seeing Kavica at the Euros is gonna be so exciting, man. I can't wait. Speaking about the Euro qualifying campaign though, it didn't actually initially go well at all. They were put in a pretty difficult group consisting of Spain, Scotland, and Norway, and they managed to finish in 4th place, only finishing above Cyprus in their group, who by the way got 0 points. So how did Georgia make the Euros and Norway didn't, despite Norway finishing higher? Well, the Nations League saved Georgia because they qualified for the Euro playoffs thanks to them finishing on top of their group in League C, and with them having the best record in League C as well, they made it to the playoffs, while Norway finished 2nd in their Nations League group, so they were out from the jump. Anyways, in the playoffs, Georgia had the challenge of facing a pretty good Luxembourg side, not gonna lie. But thanks to a Zigzavadze brace, Georgia got past them 2-0. Then in the final for Pat C, they had to play Greece, and Greece were the heavy favorites in that match. But Georgia sat back, gave Greece possession, and managed to take the game to a penalty shootout while it remained 0-0 in 120 minutes. That's when the Georgian keeper, Mamardashvili, came up clutch and saved 2 penalties from Greece to help Georgia qualify for the Euros for the first time ever. And then he started posing like a superhero. Bro turned into Batman or something, I swear. Regardless, Georgia are coming into the Euro tournament with no pressure on them whatsoever, and that can honestly help them in this group. Now for my overall Group F predictions, I got the Czech Republic finishing in last place. Like I said, they flip-flop around, and they already performed well at the last tournament, so at this one, they'll underperform. Then for 3rd place, I'm gonna put Georgia. I think them playing with no pressure whatsoever will help them play more free-flowingly, and this will help them get at least 1 win in the group, and maybe even a draw too. And then in 2nd, I got Turkey. I'm trying to keep my expectations tempered when it comes to Turkey after the last Euros, as we all know, but they are a pretty talented team on paper, you can't deny that. And then in 1st, I got Portugal, no doubt in my mind. These guys are good. Before moving on to the round of 16, the way the Euros work is that the top 4 third place teams will also make it to the knockout stages. So for me on who makes it through, the order is the Netherlands is the best placed third place team, then Switzerland, then Turkey, and then the Albanians will be the final team in the round of 16. Sorry to Romania and Slovenia, y'all barely missed out. Now for the round of 16, here are my predicted matchups. We got Germany versus Denmark, Hungary versus Italy, Spain versus Turkey, England versus Albania, Portugal versus Switzerland, Austria versus Ukraine, Belgium versus Netherlands, and France versus Georgia. Yeah, these round of 16 clashes would be entertaining as hell if it actually happens. Now for my predictions, I'm going straight off by how I feel. There isn't much evidence anymore to back up my claims or anything, because the group stages obviously haven't happened yet. These are my predictions for everything. So yeah, I just have to make that clear before I get on with my knockout stage predictions. Anyways, for the first round of 16 clash between Germany and Denmark, I got Germany winning this one all the way. Listen, Germany got the home field advantage, and plus, despite having Denmark making it to the round of 16 in my predictions, they're still not all that. At least they don't got what it takes to beat Germany in my eyes, especially with the talent that Germany has. Yeah, no chance Denmark gets past that. Then for the next one, we got Hungary versus Italy, and your boy has an upset, baby. Another one. Listen, Italy might have won the Euros back in 2020, but they're not going back to back. And I got the absolute unit of a team, Hungary, getting by and making the quarterfinals. Where's the fun in picking the favorites to go through in every round? That's unrealistic and boring. Plus, Italy are going through somewhat of a rebuild in my eyes, and I think their real tests where they'll be judged harshly will be at the 2026 World Cup, if they can make it, which they probably will. Moving on, we got Spain versus Turkey next, and your boy has another upset, man.
Another one. Another one.
You see, Spain are a great team, don't get me wrong, but they suck at breaking down low blocks. And to this day, they haven't really found a way to get past that. They couldn't do it against Russia at the 2018 World Cup round of 16, and they couldn't do it against Morocco at the 2022 World Cup round of 16. And they lost on penalties to both of them. Now, I think Turkey will attack a lot more than the other two sides I just mentioned. But for the most part, I got Turkey sitting back and chilling, and then breaking through maybe once or twice, and scoring one hell of a freak goal, and thus making the quarters. Plus, Turkey got that home support too, because there's a lot of Turkish people living in Germany. In fact, if you watch the Germany versus Turkey game in Germany, Turkey had more fans in the stadium than Germany. So with home support added on too, I got Turkey going through. Don't disappoint me, Turkey, like y'all did with the 2020 Euros, man. Next up, we got England versus Albania. And although I would love to see Albania pull off another crazy upset against England, it's just way too unrealistic, even for a guy like me. So that means I got England going through. Sorry, Albania. I like y'all, especially the women, because wow, are they beautiful, man. Y'all saw that Bayern versus Real Madrid game too. I know y'all know what I'm talking about. Anyways, next up is Portugal versus Switzerland, a repeat of the World Cup round 16 a couple years ago, where Portugal glided by the Swiss, beating them 6-1. I got the same thing happening here. Not that drastic of a scoreline, but I definitely got Portugal making the quarterfinals. Then for the next one, we got Austria versus Ukraine, a pretty even matchup. But I think Ukraine's extra motivation and the power of friendship will help them out here. And I think Mudryk will score a pivotal goal to help Ukraine reach the quarterfinals of the Euros. And if that happens, it would be crazy. Now for the next round of 16 clash, we got Belgium versus the Netherlands. And this would be an absolute banger. Now I'm not sure whether this would be categorized as an upset or not, but I got the Netherlands. Although the Dutch have yet to prove themselves against a top national team in Europe under Ronald Koeman, I think this game will help them out with that. Because Belgium is going through a massive change of generation, and I just can't see them going further. So I'm going with the Dutch here. Then for the last round of 16 game, we got France versus Georgia. And sorry Georgia, the dream run is ending here. France is taking this like 4-0, bruh. Sorry. Moving on to the quarterfinals, we got Germany versus Turkey, Portugal versus Ukraine, Netherlands versus France, and England versus Hungary. These would also be some very fire games, I can't lie. Over to the first matchup though between Germany and Turkey, this would be a tough one to predict. Especially because the last time these two sides faced each other, Turkey not only had the home advantage in Germany, but they also beat Germany 3-2 on the night, with the German-born Turkish winger Kenan Yildiz sealing the deal for his ethnic country over his nationality country. That's gotta hurt if you're a Germany fan. Now genuinely, if this happens, this might be the toughest match Germany has at the Euros, because their home field advantage would evaporate against Turkey. But I think with the addition of Toni Kroos in the squad, and the fact that Germany has so many players on fire this season, I'm gonna say Germany barely squeaks by Turkey like 2-1 or something, and this would end the Turkish dream run. Over to the next match, we got Portugal versus Ukraine, and respectfully, there's only so much motivation and the power of friendship can do for you. Portugal are gonna turn Ukraine from being in Naruto to being an Akame ga Kill, where nobody has plot armor and the power of friendship, and everybody just gets obliterated. So I got Portugal winning this game like 3-0 or 4-1 or something like that, and they'll be making the semis. Then to the next game, we got the Netherlands versus France, another tasty tie. But if y'all remember what I said earlier, France beat the Dutch in their qualifying games, and I just don't see that changing for the Dutch respectfully, meaning I got France making the semifinals. But hey, Netherlands, the quarterfinals is still a respectable finish. Finally, for the last game of the quarterfinals, we got England versus Hungary. And although I'm riding on this Hungary dark horse wave hard, wait, pause. Like I was saying, even though I'm rocking with Hungary at the Euros, especially because of my glorious and handsome King Szoboszlai, there's just no way I can see them beating England in the quarterfinals at the Euros. Yes, I know, Hungary beat them both times in the Nations League some time back, but I think when England have to play under the pressure of the Euros quarterfinals with their talented squad, I think they'll come through and beat the Hungarians. The dream run ends here, lads. Sorry about that. Now we're at the semifinals, where we got Germany versus Portugal and France versus England. Oh baby, these would be so fire. I wish this would happen. Anyways, for Germany versus Portugal, I wouldn't be surprised if either of these teams go through and make the final. But for some reason, I got a good feeling about Germany in this tournament. I don't know why, especially because they sucked up until the last international window. But the fact that the German clubs are doing so well this season, plus the German players are super in form right now, it's hard for me to say that Germany won't be making the final, even if they did have to play a well-balanced and talented Portugal side. Maybe it's Roberto Martinez tax, because he really doesn't win anything ever as a manager. So with that, I got Germany making the Euro 2024 final. Now for the next semifinal matchup, we got France versus England. Wow, France has had such a difficult route to get to this point. They're guaranteed to play the Netherlands and Austria in their group, and then according to my predictions, they had to play Georgia, Netherlands, and now England. That's tough. And if France somehow pulls this off in reality, they would 100% deserve to win the Euros. Anyways, as we all probably know, this is a rematch of the 2022 World Cup quarterfinal, where France squeaked by England 2-1 due to Harry Kane skying a penalty that he would usually bury in his sleep. But this time, I don't know, man. England usually choke all the time, don't get me wrong, but eventually, the choking has to stop, right? Especially when you have a squad as good and talented as England. Not even Southgate could this up. So with that being said, and maybe this is an upset, and maybe it isn't, but I got England beating France to make the 2024 Euros final. And this means in the Euro 2024 final, we got the host Germany playing England for the trophy. Now it is important to note that in recent history, the Euro hosts that have made the final have choked. For example, back in 2004, when Portugal were the hosts, they lost the Euro final to Greece. Then in 2016, when France were the hosts and favorites to win the entire tournament, they lost in the final to Portugal, who won their first international trophy ever. Then at the 2020 Euros, despite it being all over the continent, the final was in London, where England would play Italy, and England would lose at home on penalties. So with this track record, and simply England having a great squad this time, I think for the first time in a very long time, I got England bringing football home and winning the Euros.
He said it! He said it!
I know, I can't believe I just said that. But they have to do it eventually, no? This might as well be the time. Or I might have just jinxed England. Who knows? Sorry to Germany though. There's always next time, I guess. Anyways, let me know who y'all got going through from the Euro 2024 group stages and making them knockout rounds. And also, let me know who you guys got winning the tournament in the comments down below. I would love to know what you guys think. Now, if you did enjoy this one, please remember to subscribe to the channel. I would really appreciate it. And please be sure to follow my Twitter and my Instagram. The links are in my YouTube description. And last but not least, if you want to learn who I got winning the Champions League final this year, you definitely want to check out this video right here. You won't regret it.